Dear friend, I sense within you an unnamed exhaustion, not of the body, but of a deeper part of your soul, where you have long quietly met expectations that were never truly yours. There is a silent weariness, more draining than any physical labor, the exhaustion of always being ready to receive others' sorrows as if you were a bottomless well, ready to compromise, to smile, to respond to midnight messages as though your soul were a room always open, its lights forever on, never permitted to close. But have you noticed that room has grown silent? Perhaps you've closed the door, perhaps you've only just drawn the curtain slightly, and in that space an echo arises not of others, but of you, a small, timid, yet authentic sound, a call from the forgotten self. It's like a dream where you stand amidst the crowd, yet feel utterly alone. Or you sit in a sunlit house, but every door is open, and the wind sweeps away all that is yours. This is more than a feeling, it's a symbol. In psychoanalysis, we call it psychic leakage, a kind of soul bleeding where your energy is drained by countless invisible threads tied to demands, reactions, and roles. You are not alone. Many of my patients have said eerily similar things. I don't know who I am anymore. I just want to disappear for a while. And I used to respond, then disappear. Let yourself withdraw like the setting sun, not to escape, but to be reborn. When you are always ready, you unconsciously reject your true self. I call this the tyranny of the persona, the social mask. A necessary structure, but perilous when it becomes your only covering, and now you are beginning to see it. Your weariness is not a sign of failure, but a warning from your soul. Stop reacting. Pause. Listen. That in the dim light of awareness, you stand at a threshold. Behind you is the noisy room of reactive habits. Before you lies the quiet forest of your inner world. The question is not, what should I do? But, do I dare? Do nothing? To not respond? Not save? Not fix anyone? To simply be present for yourself? And so, the journey begins, not with a step, but with a pause. Not with a voice, but with a conscious silence. Have you heard that whisper within you yet? It is not weakness. It is your self returning home. You are stepping into a place few dare to tread, the forest of your own being. Not a forest in the outer world, but a psychological one, where the light of consciousness shines faintly and the shadow begins to whisper in my language. This is the personal and collective unconscious. The ancient terrain holding all you've pushed out of awareness to survive, among others. The act of ceasing to be ready is not merely refusing to react to the external world. It is a ritual, a retreat from the outer world to return to the central self. In Taoism, this aligns with Wu Wei, doing nothing. Yet, in that non-doing, all falls into harmony. In alchemical tradition, this is Nigredo, the first stage of spiritual transformation, where the soul's material dissolves into darkness, preparing for the rebirth of gold. You may feel empty, disoriented, or even guilty. This is natural. The social mask you've worn to survive will not fade without resistance. It will whisper. People will be disappointed if you stay silent. You are selfish for retreating. But understand, this retreat is not a rejection of love, but of false obligations disguised as duty or kindness. It is absolute honesty with yourself. Imagine walking through a shadowy forest, dense with trees, hearing distant sounds of wild creatures. No one calls your name. No one needs you. There is no map. Yet, in that solitude, something stirs, not fear, but intuition. You no longer live to please others. You begin to live to discover your true self. As Dante entered the dark wood in the Divine Comedy, midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest, dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. And in this forest, you will face the shadow, the denied part of your ego. The part that once raged, was selfish, or said no, but was silenced by the good self society expects. I wrote in Ion that the shadow is the gateway to enlightenment. If you dare to face it without fear or denial, you will see it is not an enemy but a guardian of treasure, the vibrant energy suppressed by the need to be good. Change does not come from fighting the old, but from ceasing to fuel it. When you stop being ready, you stop feeding old roles and weary expectations. Like a dry tree no longer watered, they fall away, revealing bare soil where true life can grow. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. Be silent enough to hear your own footsteps, brave enough to not answer immediately, humble enough to sit in the darkened room and wait until an image arises from within, not from your phone, not from social media, not from applause, but from something older, deeper, more primal, your soul. This stage, though quiet, is not an escape. It is courage at its highest courage to do nothing, courage to stay with the emptiness, the unanswered questions, the aching stillness. That is when the inner flame begins to glow softly. But truly, you are no longer at the threshold. You have entered the forest. And from now on, each step is not about moving towards something, but about shedding a layer, a role, a habit, a readiness that no longer belongs to you. You are deep in the forest now, where light no longer pierces the canopy, and silence grows thick like morning mist. Here, you encounter a key image in analytical psychology, the mirror, the symbol of consciousness, reflecting itself. But what happens when you stand before the mirror and see no one reflected? When the mirror cracks and its fragments fall, glinting with images you once called I, your job, your reputation, your relationships, your fixed beliefs all crumbling away. When you cease being ready, refusing to play roles, to react instinctively to social cues, you also refuse to reinforce an identity that isn't yours. You are no longer the one always there to help, to save, to please, to be strong. And this shatters the mirror. You are stunned. Who am I when I no longer need to prove anything? This shattering is the crisis of the social mask, the persona you've worn so long it felt like your own skin. But remember, in every mystical tradition, breaking is necessary before rebirth. In alchemy, this is solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. In Christianity, it is the dark night of the soul, where God seems silent. In mythology, it is Odysseus, stripped of name and title, adrift at sea, unrecognized before being welcomed back to Ithaca as a new man. I once wrote, only by losing the small self can we touch the greater self. The greater self is the center and totality of your being. both individual and universal, but to reach it, the familiar self must dissolve. That is what happens when you pause. By no longer preparing, no longer responding, you allow old images to fade. From there, a faint outline begins to emerge, not yet clear, but true. It is you undefined by utility, unmeasured by achievements, unmanipulated by fear. It is you pure and primal, the seed of a self yet to bloom. Imagine the mirror's fragments falling to the forest floor. Each piece holds an old role, the competent one, the likable one, the listener, the dutiful child, the ideal partner. You pick up a shard, look into it, you still see your own eyes. But this time, you no longer claim that image as you. You begin to ask, who is looking? Asterisk that question, dear friend, is the first sign of the true self-awakening. This is the stage of disidentification, freeing yourself from the social mask. And it is painful. You may lose praise, familiar embraces, even affection from those who don't understand your new silence. But that is the price of escaping the prison of image. A soul cannot soar if it wears the armor of social approval. I once said, we are not enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When the mirror shatters, you are no longer enchanted by the false light of the social mask. You begin to see the true darkness, where the shadow waits, and beneath it are gentler, smoldering light, the only true light, the light of individuation. Sit in the forest, look at the mirror's fragments, thank them, they helped you survive. But don't piece them back together. Let them dissolve, and wait like one who sits silently in the night. Knowing dawn comes not from effort, but from readiness to embrace the unknown, for only in the dark night of the shattered self does the eternal self begin to whisper. You have sat silently in the forest, where the mirror lies broken, where the images that once protected you have fallen like dry leaves. In this seeming emptiness, something stirs, not a sound from the outside, but a movement within, a faint breath, like the first echo of your true soul, whispering from the deepest place what I call the greater self. It does not shout or impose. It comes like mist over a lake at dawn, gentle, yet undeniable. I once wrote, the ego is a small island floating on the vast ocean of the unconscious. When you stop being ready, cease steering the small boat of the ego, you allow the currents of the unconscious to lift you. You no longer control the journey, you let go. And in that letting go, a deeper order emerges, not from will, but from symbols. Dreams bring strange images. An abandoned child, a snake gliding through a dark cave, a bird shedding its feathers. These images, though seemingly disjointed, are the language of the unconscious. If you listen not with your ears, but with a receptive mind, you will see they are guides. The greater self speaks not in logic, but in symbols. In Taoism, it is the Tao, that which cannot be named. In Kabbalah, end of. It is the unfiltered light. In Greek mythology, it is Prometheus's call, stealing divine fire for humanity. But in your soul, it is a gentle whisper, come home. Coming home does not mean returning to the old life, where you were always ready to serve, to protect your image, to endure for love. No, coming home in psychoanalytic terms is returning to the center of your being, where you need not be anyone to be yourself, where you act not to prove, but as a natural expression of your soul's energy. Picture an image I cherish, the mandala, the sacred circle. As you pass through dissolution and darkness, you sense a new order, the order of individuation in dreams. You see a room with a circular door, a spiral garden, a child drawing circles in the dirt. These are signs of the greater self, the totality emerging. And then the strangest thing happens. When you stop striving to be a better version, you become alive. When you cease being ready to cope, you begin to connect. When you no longer fear abandonment for not responding, you are loved authentically, for the small self, always afraid, has been set aside, and the greater self, calm and steady as a mountain, begins to speak through you, not in words, but in presence. This is the sacred moment all spiritual traditions aim for, yet few have the courage to reach. It comes not from effort, but from surrender, not from readiness, but from embracing not knowing, not being defined. In that obscurity, an eternal spark glimmers, not a light from outside, but the light of your soul. Dear friend, if you are in this place where all that is familiar dissolves, where you are, no one knows that you are closer than ever to your indestructible core. Keep going, not through effort, but through acceptance, for the greater self comes not when you prepare, but when you release all preparation, like a seed sprouting only when its hard shell dissolves, like dawn arriving only after the long night, like true love coming only when you cease performing to be seen as you are. When you cease being ready, you do not collapse or lose your way. On the contrary, you return, not to the weary self that resisted, but to the deepest center of you being, what I call the wholeness, das Selbst. It is not a destination, but a state of being, the state of a circle, completed, the state of the mandala, the eternal symbol of the fulfillment your soul always seeks. In the dreams of my patients, both young wanderers and seasoned souls, a recurring symbol appears, a room with 4 windows, a circular garden with a well at its center, a child sitting within a circle of white stones. These images, simple, mystical, or complex, are manifestations of the greater self, emerging when the ego has shattered enough for wholeness to rise. It happens when we stop controlling, stop striving, stop being ready to meet the world's expectations, and begin listening to the voice from within. You may ask, how do I know I've reached this place? I cannot answer with reason, but I can invite you to feel when you no longer see yourself as an actor in the drama of life, when you stop seeking points, love, or approval, and instead feel a peace without reason. That is a sign. When your gaze no longer judges others, but becomes a gentle, truthful mirror, that is the sign. When you can be alone without torch, without loneliness. Speak truth without fear of losing love, or be silent without emptiness. That is the sign. Wholeness is not perfection in the moral sense. It embraces both light and shadow, angel and beast, weakness and savior. But it reconciles all, not through victory, but through presence. In alchemy, this is Obedo, the reddening, where after dissolution and unification, the spiritual gold appears, no longer the ego craving control, but the greater self quietly shining. In a letter to a young patient, I once wrote, "You need not do anything to be worthy. You are enough, because you exist." That is what I say to you now. In a world demanding constant readiness, response, and preparation, the most revolutionary act is to be quietly present, without reason, without roles, without masks, just you whole, complete, bearing the symbol of wholeness. If you doubt, thinking this inner journey is intangible or impractical, remember that all human civilizations, great traditions, mystics and masters have left traces of this path, from dissolution to individuation, from readiness to fight, to surrender to something greater, from the isolated ego to integration into wholeness. I am not a preacher. I offer no dogma. I only invite you to look closer, deeper at the fragments life has scattered. Beneath the dust of wounds, beneath the masks of effort, lies something eternal. Your symbol, the wordless voice of your soul, and the journey toward it, however slow or winding, is the only one worth living fully. Write down your dreams, draw the symbols that arise in meditation, walk through the forest as if each step were a ritual of return, and when you can, look into another's eyes without defense, simply to be present. That is when you are no longer ready, but truly willing, and that is the deepest transformation. In the gentle light of the self, I bow to you as one soul, recognizing another. No one leads, no one follows, just two walking side by side in the forest of becoming. Dear friend, now that the journey has led you through the dark forest, through the echoes of the resisting ego, through the abyss of uncertainty and the quiet path to wholeness, we pause not to end, but to breathe anew the breath of a soul no longer in haste. In an age of speed, of preparation, of readiness for the next thing, we have forgotten an ancient wisdom, the wisdom of silence. Just as a seed does not grow by being pulled from the soil to check it, your soul blooms only in stillness. There are no strategies, no interpretations, only presence, like an ancient stone beside the river of time. Let me share a patient's dream from my years in Küsnacht. He dreamt he sat under a chestnut tree on an autumn afternoon. No one came, nothing happened. The breeze rustled the leaves. He saw himself aging but unafraid. He accepted his reflection in the lake's mirror like water. It was the first dream, free of crisis or escape, and that was the symbol of healing. Healing, you see, is not loud. It does not burst forth like the enlightenment of sages. It comes like morning dew light, thin, almost invisible. Yet it seeps into every fiber, every fold of the soul, and remains. You need not declare, "I am healed." For when you truly touch wholeness, there is nothing left to declare. Your presence itself is the complete symbol. In alchemy, when Rubedo is complete, the alchemist does not rush to the streets to proclaim their gold. They quietly close the laboratory, wash their hands, sip tea, and step into the garden. So too, after the inner journey, you need not prove anything. Your silence speaks louder than 1,000 justifications. In my final years, I often wrote simple things in my journal. Today I heard the birds sing. I need not know the future. This was not surrender, but union. When you cease being ready to fight, to be loved, to succeed, you become ready to live. So, if you wonder, what do I do next? Let me answer with a paradox. Nothing. Let life do the rest. Let dreams guide you. Write, draw, love. Live not to arrive somewhere, but to live. That is the most sacred act. You need not seek the light. Light is within you, waiting for you to stop being ready so it can shine freely. And at the forest's end, you will find not a path, but a space where no longer driven, you are finally yourself. Rest, be silent, and let everything transform.